Test. Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are about to begin the session soon, so you may return to your assigned seats. Thank you. Cindy, Wahyu, Wahyu. Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed delegates. Welcome to the opening sessions of the AOIP Vision Group Conference. We also would like to give a warm welcome to our delegates joining via Zoom and all the participants who are tuning in online on YouTube. Welcome, everybody. The AOIP Vision Group Conference is an international symposium bringing together delegates from each ASEAN member states and dialogue partners to discuss the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific. This conference is co-hosted by Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia and the National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies and supported by the Japan Foundation. Today, we look forward to engaging in insightful discussions and meaningful exchanges as we explore updates on the AOIP and examine the geopolitical outlook of the Indo-Pacific region. And we would like to encourage all delegates to actively participate, share your thoughts and insights, and engage in constructive discussions. To start off, so without further ado, we would like to invite Dr. Dino Patijalal, the founder and chairman of FPCI, to give opening remarks and also to chair the opening session. Dr. Dino, you may have the floor.
Thank you, Ray, and I'm very pleased to welcome all of you. I trust you have had a good trip. I'm sorry, Bali is very wet these days. Obviously, actually, in December, it rained almost every day. But you'll see some sunshine at least a couple hours a day. So please enjoy Bali, and it's a good time because it's very quiet now. You know, you don't see all the tourists and so on. But I want to thank our partner, the National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies, GRIPS, and the Japan Foundation for supporting this initiative. This shows Japan's commitment to supporting the operationalization of AOIP. I will use my 10 minutes to review the past year and share my ideas on what we should do this year. Last year, in this very room, we agreed that AOIP has the potential to be a game-changing initiative that can transform rivalry into cooperation and a deficit of trust into mutual confidence. However, in my view, this has not happened as yet, and AOIP has not yet become the initiative that we hope for. And of course, this is understandable because there's a lot of challenges and it is relatively a new concept. After our first conference, I handed the recommendation that we made together to the Secretary General of ASEAN, Dr. Kau Kim Horn, and then I flew to Vientiane, Laos DPR, to deliver the recommendation in person. In my conversation with them, they welcomed the initiative and accepted our recommendation. However, they also acknowledged the challenges of operationalizing AOIP in the midst of declining trust among states, increasing geopolitical rivalries, and uncertainties. Despite these challenges, I believe AOIP has played its role in shaping the discourse of the Indo-Pacific. It has changed the perception of the Indo-Pacific from being designed to corner somebody to one that includes everybody. AOIP is the only Indo-Pacific document accepted and endorsed by all major powers: the United States, Japan, India, Australia, the EU, and even China, which endorsed it in 2023. AOIP is one of the best examples of how ASEAN has earned its centrality. Now, a year later, we are reconvening in the same room, but not in the same world. Trump 2.0 shows the United States is not interested in leading the world. They have withdrawn from the Paris Agreement, Paris Climate Agreement, WHO, scaling back US aid, and other international commitments. They have also stepped back from the rules-based international order they promoted and founded. To be honest, I never would imagine that a Western country would openly claim the large territory of another sovereign country, which happens to be their ally. And I think the way that the United States has scolded its partners and allies, Canada, United States, Europe, and others, is something that is unprecedented. And perhaps this is going to be seen as the new normal, at least for the next 4 years. I participated in the Munich Security Conference just recently in Germany, and also in the ASEAN Future Forum in Vietnam yesterday. I felt and witnessed a stark contrast in confidence between the Western world, the one that I saw in Europe, and our region. Munich was gloomy. You can tell that the Western world is in disarray, and confidence was low. Uncertainty was very high. In Hanoi, everyone was cautiously optimistic about the region's future. They know there's a big problem in Europe, in Transatlantic Alliance, that will affect multilateralism, but they believe that those problems does not necessarily transplanted into the Indo-Pacific, and certainly not ASEAN. And there's a feeling that there's space for ASEAN to seek new strategic opportunities in this evolving world order. And certainly confidence was high. So we are living in a world with disparities in confidence about the global and regional order. And that is the landscape by which we are pursuing the AOIP. In Southeast Asia, a new set of leaders has assumed office in the last 2 years. 8 out of 11 Southeast Asian countries, including in Indonesia, have new leaders. This means they may have different worldviews, different foreign policies, priorities, and their own ideas about the region, and even conception on the Indo-Pacific. Even my President Prabowo Subianto, I almost said Yudhoyono, sorry. Even my President Prabowo Subianto has yet to strongly reaffirm AOIP in his foreign policy speeches since inaugurated as president in October last year. And perhaps we should expect him to do so at the ASEAN Summit in May in Malaysia this year. So this is a situation where I suggest we review the context and how AOIP can address it. I sense that not every ASEAN country have the same understanding and agency regarding AOIP. And I think this makes me certain that this AOIP Vision Group serves as a platform or lab for in-depth discussions about AOIP and to identify different views on it. I believe we also play a role in maintaining or even strengthening the momentum of AOIP. And we've been here before many times. ASEAN has been in crossroads many times, and I would say sometimes worse than what we have in terms of the world order. And I think, the politicians can be, certainly the politicians in Munich were somewhat depressed, right? But us here, we're scholars, we're strategic thinkers. I think this is kind of fun, actually. This is what we live for. This is our bread and butter. This is what makes us run fast in the morning. This sense that the world is evolving, and there's really a lot that we can do to fix it. There's a lot that we can do to reform it and just keep us all afloat, right? So I think that is the spirit of how we should embrace our deliberation today. Yeah. All of us come from different places, but I think all of us have something useful to share with one another. And I do feel that from individual conversations, there is a sense of, again, cautious optimism about what ASEAN and our dialogue partners can do together and how we can move the needles on AOIP. So today we will go through the 4 pillars, and each working group has drafted a policy memo. I invite everyone to provide input and focus on how each recommendation can be realistically implemented and by which institution. At the end of the day, we will merge every policy recommendations into one document, and tomorrow we will discuss the final draft of it. Lastly, regarding the future of AOIP Vision Group Conference, FPCI and GRIPS wish to continue this process, which I think is quite useful. And in fact, I would say this is one of a kind. I'm not sure if there is another similar AOIP process at track 2 level, but we're also open to the idea of upgrading it into track 1.5, and the possibility of a larger conference with public participation. The idea is to keep the spirit and momentum AOIP not only alive, but become even stronger. I wish all of us fruitful discussion for the next 2 days. Thank you. Okay. So now I'll be chairing the panel discussion at the opening session, and the title of this session is Update on AOIP and the Geopolitical Outlook of the Indo-Pacific. We will first listen to a keynote speech by Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN for Socio-Cultural Community, His Excellency San Nguyen. And following this, we'll have a panel discussion with 4 distinguished speakers. Firstly, Dr. Un Kiang, Secretary of State of the Cambodian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He's somewhere. Oh, there, right next to me. Michael Tene, former Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN for Political Security Community, who once spoke last year as keynote speaker and now joining us in his personal capacity. Welcome, Mike. Ambassador Bob Blake, former U.S. Ambassador to Indonesia, who is joining online from Zoom. Hi, Bob. And Professor Sutomo Kikuchi, Emeritus Professor at Aoyama Gakuin University of Japan. I would also like to welcome all the delegates who are joining us on Zoom, as well as the public audience who are watching live on YouTube. Before we move on to the panel discussion, let us hear the keynote speech by His Excellency San Nguyen, Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant day. It is a genuine privilege to address you today on a subject of profound importance, the Indo-Pacific. This vast and dynamic region is not simply a geographical area. It is a region that holds the key to much of the 21st century trajectory. It is here, amidst this vibrant interplay of forces, that the pursuit of sustainable development takes on particular significance. Today, I wish to reflect on the crucial roles of Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, within the context of ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific, or AOIP, and how these endeavors resonate with the broader visions of ASEAN Community Vision 2045. The Indo-Pacific is a region of remarkable diversities and dynamisms. While a source of strength, this richness also presents complex challenges. Achieving sustainable development requires not only visions and drive, but a deep understanding of the interconnected economic, socio-cultures, and geopolitical dynamics that shape it. The AOIP recognizes these intricate webs of relationship. It understands that sustainable development is a foundation upon which regional stability, economic prosperities, and social harmonies are built. sentiments echo in the aspirations of ASEAN Community Vision 2045. The AOIP, with its 4 pillars of cooperation, maritime, connectivity, economic, and the SDG, offer a comprehensive framework for regional engagement. While each pillar is essential in its own right, it is the SDG that provide common thread that binds together the region's diverse interests and ambitions. These shared aspirations are embedded to the ASEAN Community Vision 2045. As we know, the SDG represent a global compact. It is a call to action to address the range of interconnected challenges, from the existential threats of climate change to the persistent realities of inequalities and lack of access to essential services. In the Indo-Pacific, these challenges take on a particular urgency. Within ASEAN, while population growth was moderated, our urban centers are projected to expand 1.5 times by 2050. Our forest coverage has declined to 40%, and the impacts of climate change threaten to push an additional 2.5 million people into poverty by 2030. We face compounding pressures from persistent healthcare barriers, food insecurities, and widespread informal employment. These are not merely statistics, they are the life reality for millions, and they are the very issues that ASEAN Community Vision 2045 seeks to address. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the AOIP recognizes that realizing SDGs and thereby achieving the broader goals of ASEAN Community Vision 2045 demands genius collaborations. It's call for partnerships that extend across government, business, civil society, academia, and each and every individual. This is through such collaboration, through the poolings of knowledge, skills, and resources, that we can hope to develop truly innovative and actionable solutions. Consider, for example, the challenge of climate action SDG 13. Rising sea level, more frequent and instant storms, floods, disruption to agriculture. These are not abstract threats. Cooperation on climate mitigation and adaptation is simply a matter of policy. It is a matter of survival. Step by step, we are demonstrating our commitment to address and mitigate the impact of climate change. We are continuously expanding the network of protected areas through the ASEAN Heritage Park Program. The ongoing establishment of ASEAN Center for Climate Change and ASEAN Coordinating Center for Transboundary Heat Pollution Control demonstrate our resolve to combat environmental challenges. Furthermore, ASEAN strategies for carbon neutrality, which identify decarbonization solutions tailored to the region, the framework for circular economy for ASEAN Economic Community, designed to enhance resource efficiency, and the ASEAN Blue Economy Framework, which promote an integrated and sustainable approach to harnessing the values of resources from ocean, seas, and fresh water, while creating value-added products and strengthening value chains. These are all significant strides. It is through these concrete initiatives that we can hope to achieve not only SDG 13, but also the broader aspirations of ASEAN Community Vision 2045 for a resilient and sustainable communities. Or consider the imperative of decent works and economic growth, SDG 8. The AOIP recognizes the need for economies that offer meaningful opportunity for all. The digital landscape within ASEAN is expanding rapidly, as digitalization is an undeniable reality, presenting both challenges and vast opportunity. To capitalize on this transformation and create truly inclusive growth, we must prioritize enhancing skill development, breaking down barriers to participations, fostering innovations and entrepreneurships, and promoting sustainable business practices. We have a solid foundation to build upon. Our pledge to inclusivity is demonstrated by the strong participation of women in the labor force at 56.8%, by the dynamism of our youth, who comprise 33.2% of our populations, and our commitment to persons with disabilities through the ASEAN Enabling Master Plan 2025, which guides the implementation and mainstreaming of their lives. Furthermore, we have designated under Malaysia chairpersonships the years 2025 as ASEAN Years of Skills AYOS, a significant step in developing the human capital necessary for a digital future. Moreover, ASEAN declarations of promoting green job for equities and inclusive growth of ASEAN community underscores our promise to sustainable and equitable futures. And there is a foundational importance of quality education. SDG 4. Education is not only a means of personal advancement, it is a key to unlocking human potentials. 95.1% of adults possess functional literacies, providing a strong base upon which to build. We are actively targeting technology to further enhance educational access and qualities. Initiatives like the roadmap on digital transformations of education system and the Vision Statement on Equity, Access and Environment, advancing climate resilience in early childhood settings, aim to ensure equitable access for all learners in the region in this digital age. The achievement, combined with the transformative potentials of digitalizations, are the building block of a prosperous and inclusive society, a society envisioned by ASEAN Community Vision 2045. There are just some examples of how the SDG can serve as a catalyst for progress and how they can provide a practical framework for realizing the ambitions of both AOIP and the ASEAN Community Vision 2045. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now, if I may, I would like to share some thoughts on how we can further strengthen our collaboration in pursuit of these objectives. I believe that enhanced dialogue at all levels is crucial. Creating more opportunity for open communication, for the exchange of ideas and perspectives, can help us to build trust and understanding, which are the cornerstone of effective cooperations. Second, I believe we should explore innovative mechanisms for joint implementations of projects and initiatives. Pooling our resources and expertise can amplify our impact and accelerate progress towards the SDG and towards the goals of AOIP. In light of the multiple challenges we face and the limited resources we can draw from, it is important that we utilize our resources effectively and synergistically. Finally, fostering greater engagement with all stakeholders, including academia, private sectors, and civil society, is vital. Their insights and contributions are invaluable in developing sustainable solutions that are both effective and inclusive. Not only do policies that are grounded in evidence and real-world experience allow for better resource allocations and effective targeting, they build trust and ownership. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in closing, the SDG represent not simply a set of targets, but a vision for a more just and sustainable world. ASEAN Community Vision 2045 provides strategic compass for navigating the path toward that vision. And the AOIP, with its emphasis on cooperation and partnership, offer a practical mechanism from translating aspiration to actions. The AOIP Vision Group Conference highlights the importance of bridging the gap between ambitions and implementation. It is now for us working together with a spirit of shared purpose and a commitment to nuanced diplomacy to ensure that the promise of Indo-Pacific and the visions of an inclusive and sustainable ASEAN Vision 2045 are not simply words on a page. That's the life reality for all the peoples of these regions. I extend my sincere gratitude to the organizer, to AOIP vision groups, and each participant. Let us move forward in a unified spirit with unwavering determinations to build a sustainable and inclusive ASEAN and Indo-Pacific region for generations to come. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Secretary General San Win. I'm now pleased to invite Michael Tene to have your remarks.
Thank you, Padino, and I don't prepare any text, so I apologize if I might be rambling a bit. But there are 5 points I would like to discuss or present on these occasions. The first point is just to remind us about what ASEAN is all about. Well, the primary objective of the ASEAN cooperation will always remain focused on Southeast Asia. That is the primary objective, maintaining peace and security in Southeast Asia as well as promoting prosperity. So Southeast Asia is always the primary objective of ASEAN. And this brings me to the second point. Even though Southeast Asia is the primary objective of ASEAN, however, we also recognize that peace, security, and prosperity of Southeast Asia also in large part dependent on external powers, on external actors, on the region surrounding Southeast Asia. That is why ASEAN have been developing since its early days external relations with partners, as well as developing regional and multilateral fora such as the ARF and the East Asia Summit. And the Indo-Pacific construct from ASEAN point of view is simply the extension of these principles, that the Southeast Asia's security and prosperity is also largely dependent on the external environment, and therefore ASEAN should play an important role as well in managing this external environment that affect Southeast Asia. Now, the third point is the current situation that we are facing. I think, especially in the past 10 to 15 years, we are seeing a serious erosion of international order. We see increasing economic protectionism. We see the dysfunctioning and the diminishing role of the WTO and other international mechanisms. The war in Ukraine, the conflict in Gaza, now West Bank, and including some of the recent statements about the future of Gaza, this all give a picture of a serious erosion of commitment on international humanitarian law, as well as commitment to some of the basic principles of international relations, particularly about sovereignty and the territorial integrity of a nations. So these are the challenges that we are looking at globally. Now, in the Indo-Pacific region, of course, we are fortunate there are no open armed conflict among states in the region. However, we also know that there are ongoing gray zone conflict or confrontations, which, if not being reined in, if not being managed, then this will seriously affect the environment, seriously affect the security of our region. And of course, for ASEAN, Indo-Pacific, again, play a very important role because, well, in the past, we have the geopolitical construct of Asia-Pacific. But if you look at the geopolitical construct of Asia-Pacific, it's like a ring. And in the middle is empty ocean. And ASEAN is in the part of the ring. But the geopolitical construct of Indo-Pacific put ASEAN in the center. geographically, location-wise, but also substantive-wise in terms of the political, economic, and social interaction in the Indo-Pacific. And therefore, based on that challenges, this brings me to my fourth point, that AOIP is an important contribution from ASEAN to help address this situation. The AOIP provides a platform to counter the narrative of confrontation that we are seeing elsewhere. It is also a platform for ASEAN to help strengthen and build and promote the regional order based on the rule of law, based on relevant international laws, based on the universally accepted principles and norms. And by doing so, help to strengthen the international order that I have said earlier seems to be in decline. The AOIP itself, if we look at the document, it consists of two parts. The first part consists of the principles, norms. Second part consists of the 4 areas of cooperation. What I would like to point out here is that, of course, we want to have tangible result from the 4 areas of cooperation in the form of activities, projects. But equally important is that the 4 areas of cooperation also serves as a means to realize, a means to bring forward, means to implement the principles that are in the AOIP. I mean, the maritime cooperation, SDGs, economic cooperations, connectivity, these are not new areas of cooperation. They already exist in other forums. But what differentiates it when it comes under the framework of AOIP is also for this area of cooperation to serve as a means to promote and implement and realize the principles contained in the first part of the document, especially principles of inclusiveness, principles of promoting cooperation instead of confrontation. Now, I think one of the good example that perhaps we can discuss later is about the RCEP. RCEP, I think, is a good example of how the AOIP are put in place. It allows all partners of ASEAN to work not only with ASEAN, but also among themselves. And everyone benefit from the RCEP. So these are one of the examples how actually AOIP can be put in place. And RCEP, although it was first negotiated only between ASEAN and its partners who already have a free trade agreement with ASEAN, but once it was adopted, it is now open for other parties to join. So it's quite inclusive in nature. Now, my fifth point is that the success of AOIP depends not only on ASEAN, but also on the other stakeholders. Of course, ASEAN plays an important role, but the willingness, the commitment from the other stakeholders is also equally important. In fact, I can even suggest that in terms of the initiatives, if ASEAN is too slow in coming up with initiative, then let the partners, other stakeholders to take the lead. As long as they comply with the principles of AOIP, as long as the initiative are supported by ASEAN. So you don't have to wait for ASEAN to take the lead if they are too slow. Partners can come, but as long as they comply with the principles and also get the approval and support from ASEAN. For ASEAN itself, I think it is important for ASEAN to accept the fact that to secure Southeast Asia prosperity and security, it has to take up a larger responsibility, to take up and stood up to the wider expectation to play a wider role, a more important role beyond Southeast Asia, especially in the Indo-Pacific region. And for that matters, I think ASEAN has to come up with a way to better coordinate its regional foreign policy to be able to take up this wider responsibility in a wider region. Thank you.
Thank you. I think my conclusion from your remarks is AOIP is a strategic document for ASEAN, and secondly, we'd like to remind, for ASEAN, there is no other strategic document than AOIP at the moment. Yeah. Of course, AOIP is the continuation of all the previous strategic documents that ASEAN has produced. But for now, I think in terms of engaging and strategizing the Indo-Pacific, AOIP is the only document and plan for ASEAN. So with that, I move to Bob Blake. Bob?
Thank you, Padino. And thank you for everything that you and FPCI are doing to promote a positive internationalism in Indonesia. I think we may need you to expand your programming to Washington, given our isolationist tendencies. Thanks also to the Japan Foundation and to the others who are supporting this. And of course, I'm very happy to join this distinguished panel. As the only American on this panel, let me just use my time to talk briefly about the dramatic changes that Donald Trump is making to U.S. foreign policy, what is motivating those, and then what those mean for Asia. As you all know, Donald Trump, in just over a month, has made truly dramatic changes that are redrawing the contours of the post-World War II order, including America's network of alliances and our partnership and participation in key international institutions. As Padino said, the biggest change is really in our transatlantic relations. And a key marker there was our Defense Secretary's remarks to NATO 2 weeks ago, where he told the Europeans that NATO will not be involved in any future peacekeeping operation in Ukraine, that Europeans will have to pay for and staff such a force, and no American troops will be part of the operation. This marks an abrupt reversal of post-World War II bipartisan American policy, and essentially puts Europe on notice that they are on their own, because America is now principally concerned with its own borders and with China. But there have been some other important changes. As Dino also noted, Trump has very little regard for international sovereignty, as he is shown by his threats regarding Greenland and the Panama Canal. He has little regard for what is America's single largest strategic advantage over China, which is our network of alliances. In addition to his threats to NATO, he has threatened tariffs against NATO ally Canada, while a prominent advisor of his, Peter Navarro, has said publicly that the United States should expel Canada from the Five Eyes intelligence sharing arrangement. Again, these kinds of threats are unprecedented. Trump is also pulling the U.S. out of international institutions, not just the World Health Organization and COP, but possibly also some of the Bretton Woods institutions like the IMF and the World Bank. He's ordered a review of U.S. participation in all such institutions. So you might ask, what is behind all this? Let me answer that briefly in 4 ways. First, Trump has long believed that Europe is not spending enough on its own defense and relying too much on the U.S. security umbrella. So his comments about NATO are not that surprising. Second, he admires strong men like Putin, like Xi Jinping, like Viktor Orban of Hungary and others. Third, many commentators say that Trump's ultimate ambition appears to be to push Ukraine and Russia to reach a peace agreement as part of a wider agreement that will allow Russia to sell its oil again on international markets and thereby drive down the price of oil and therefore inflation in the United States ahead of the November 2026 elections, the midterm elections. And then fourth, there are also reports that Trump wants to strike a deal with Russia and China, whereby all three countries will agree to halve their defense spending. Now, in the United States case, such defense cuts would help pay for tax cuts for America's wealthiest, which is one of his highest priorities. And interestingly, Putin earlier this week said that he agreed with the idea of having defense budgets. So what does all this mean for the Asia-Pacific? On the one hand, it's good news that Trump and his team recognize that it is Asia more than Europe that has the world's largest populations that are still growing and the most important markets for the United States for the next 30 years and beyond. I'm sure you all noticed that on Foreign Minister Rubio's very first day in office, he met with the foreign ministers of the Quad, of the US, Australia, India, and Japan, and that the Quad joint statement after that meeting referenced the commitment of all four countries to strengthen, quote, a free and open Indo-Pacific, where the rule of law, democratic values, sovereignty, and territorial integrity are all upheld and defended. Those are wonderful sentiments, and I hope they keep to that. Secondly, in his bilat with Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong right after that, the U.S. readout of the meeting said that both had agreed to work together to continue security cooperation through AUKUS and other bilateral defense initiatives. So again, I think these are all important signals of sort of continuity in our policy in the Indo-Pacific. Trump himself has not said very much about this yet, so we have to be a little bit careful. On the other hand, I think there are many worrying signs for Asia, and let me just tick those off. One is that there remains deep uncertainty about Trump's objectives with respect to China. Despite his very bellicose campaign rhetoric, he's been very conciliatory in leaving open the possibility of a trade deal with China. This, of course, matters greatly to the rest of Asia, not least because China and the US are both the largest export markets and the largest investors for most of the Asian countries. Second, Asian countries are likely to be a top target for Trump tariffs and other punitive trade measures. Asia has 6 of the top 10 countries with the largest trade surpluses with the United States, which is a key yardstick for Trump. Those 6 are China, Vietnam, Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, and India. Many Asian countries, particularly Vietnam, also have become top destinations for Chinese goods and investment, which Trump sees as Chinese backdoors into the US market. So Vietnam needs to be careful about that. And according to Morgan Stanley, tariffs that have already been announced on autos, semiconductors, energy, and pharmaceuticals account for about a quarter of the total exports from Asia. And Moody's calculates that if these are fully implemented, they could slow economic growth in Asia to 3.7% this year from the 4% that was achieved last year. So the threats are very real, and that doesn't count the threat of reciprocal tariffs that are still out there. Third, more broadly, it is the US security umbrella and the US Navy who have patrolled Asia's waters for the last half century that have helped keep the peace and lay the basis for the unparalleled growth and stability that we have seen in ASEAN and other parts of Asia. If the US halves its defense spending, I worry that our military presence in Asia may look very different. So my advice to all of you is, first of all, to engage Trump. And I know many of the leaders of ASEAN are taking measures to prepare to do so at the highest levels. Secondly, to take preemptive actions on the issues that he cares about, particularly on those trade issues, and do whatever you can to build ties of all kinds, economic, military, and strategic, with the United States. And yes, please do everything in your power to ensure that ASEAN defends and indeed embodies the rules-based international order and the institutions that underpin it. That will help continue the promise of ASEAN and will help ensure that ASEAN will continue to drive growth along with India for the next 30 years. So I hear the bell is ringing and my time is up, but thank you very much for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Bob, for those very useful insights that you share with us. You're in Washington, so you have your finger on the pulse of Washington, and you always give very sharp and fair and useful analysis for us. So thank you very much. Now, I'm happy to give the floor to Dr. Un Kiang.
Great. Thank you, Pak Dino. I've been asked to give a brief remark on ASEAN roles in regional stability and centrality. As we all have heard that in recent years, we have witnessed a changing global security landscape with the Indo-Pacific as the hotspot for global geopolitical competition. At the intersection between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific, ASEAN is critical to the region's stability, hence a need to promote its centrality. This short presentation will cover 3 points on ASEAN's role in maintaining regional stability and centrality, and recommendations on how ASEAN and its dialogue partners can further operationalize AOIP. First, to promote stability in the region, ASEAN member states and ASEAN must guard themselves against the risk of allowing ASEAN-led mechanisms to turn into a geopolitical battleground. In this context, ASEAN needs to seek solutions to the pertinent issues in the region. Tension in the South China Sea needs to be resolved by accelerating the negotiation toward completing the codes of conduct for the South China Sea. This code of conduct must be inclusive, transparent, and rules-based, including international law and UNCLOS. It has been evident that big and middle power have pivoted to the Indo-Pacific by creating many Indo-Pacific strategies. To guard against being pulled into any potentially destabilizing Indo-Pacific arrangements, each ASEAN member state and ASEAN as a whole, as Cambodia does, should support initiatives not aimed against any country or bloc, but promote win-win development and peace. This brings me to my second point, the AIOP concepts and its operationalization. ASEAN's adoptions of AOIP illustrates ASEAN's determinations to play a central role in the Indo-Pacific changing geopolitical landscape. Today's gathering shows that ASEAN has internalized the AOIP, though slowly, and explore ways to operationalize it. Many ASEAN dialogue partners have expressed their interest in AOIP. To maintain ASEAN centrality and to promote regional stability, it is imperative that any operationalization of AOIP needs to be involved many middle powers as possible. This ensures that AOIP projects cut across multiple areas and power configurations. As I mentioned, many Indo-Pacific strategies exist. undoubtedly leading to fragmentation of visions and projects for the Indo-Pacific region. ASEAN can mitigate such fragmentation by promoting AOIP at the core of any Indo-Pacific discussion. As such, AOIP is a strategic bridge that facilitates the convergence of multiple competing visions around ASEAN's core interests and those of the Asia-Pacific. Such conversions can maximize ASEAN's development goals, interests, and hence centrality. For example, AOIP can synergize its projects with those of India under its Act East policy in infrastructure connectivity, for example. The other constructed India-Myanmar-Thailand trilateral highway is India's seamless road network that connects Indian subcontinent to Southeast Asia. It aims to enhance trade, foster cultural exchanges, and contribute to regional stability. But when extended to Laos, Vietnam, and Cambodia, this highway further expands Southeast Asia link to the Indian Ocean. The synergy between AIOP projects and such trilateral highway project, and similar other projects for that matter, will increase interconnectivity and development across the Indo-Pacific region. And this interconnectedness will enhance the two regions' economic security, including maritime economic security. My third point is as follows. The world has become even more interconnected, yet some forces push for deglobalization. And globalization, as we have realized, has served the world quite well. It has expanded world trade, promoted economic growth, and reduced poverty. However, patterns of wealth distribution within and between countries have generated popular discontent with globalization, turning some countries toward trade protectionism. Consequently, the multilateral system is experiencing significant stress under the changing world order and isolationist impulses. ASEP, as ASEAN-centered trade arrangement, has promoted free trade and resilient supply chains. ASEAN can use this platform to expand its membership to other Asian Pacific countries and encourage different forms of cooperations, such as the blue economy. Let me conclude my engagement by noting that many countries share concern over the over-securitization embedded in some Indo-Pacific initiatives, mainly in the realm of digital security. In this context, AIOP operationalization should focus more on non-security issues, i.e., connecting the connectivities. Such a focus will certainly enhance ASEAN centrality and regional stability. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. On Kiang, for your thoughtful remarks. I think, Michael spoke about the declining world order. And I think one of the big questions, for a lot of countries, when they see a declining world order where the rules are not consistently applied, the natural tendency is to turn to the region, right, where we belong, and so on. And I think the big question is, can the Indo-Pacific establish its own order in view of the fact that the global order does not seem to be dependable. Right? So, again, we can discuss this later. I now have the pleasure to invite Dr. Sutomu San.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ambassador Dino. Already, the previous speaker pointed out, as for the geopolitical development in the Indo-Pacific region, to be noted is decline of the regional order, which have been sustaining regional peace and prosperity. And now, especially big powers have been taking a defiant behavior against international rules and norms in not only South China Sea or East China Sea, but also the India-China border and so forth. And now we are seeing emergence of new disruptor of destabilizing international and regional orders, as previous speaker mentioned, return of the Trump second. How Mr. Trump and his colleagues are seeing the international societies? I see a very strong distrust or hate of existing international orders that have been established mainly by the United States. According to Mr. Trump and his colleagues, so existing international regimes benefit the other countries greatly and promoted economic prosperity and powers of other countries. But on the other hand, it's caused serious damage to US and US interests. And US lost manufacturing and other industrial bases and so forth. So United States now, taking other countries, taking positions to pursue US national interests rather than maintaining global and regional orders. So that is, the situation we are now facing in the Indo-Pacific. So probably, in my understanding, United States will be less willing to sustain regional order that have been underpinning the regional peace and stability of these regions. And also, US will be less willing to share the cost sustaining the public goods of these regions. So how we respond to these situations? I would make 3 points. The first one is that we need to recognize we have to address a matter of regional orders as a pressing task among us. So without stable regional orders, we cannot enjoy prosperity and peace in the coming decades. So in that context, as Ambassador Dino already pointed out, we need to recognize that AOIP is a strategic document, and that demonstrate the ASEAN's willingness to participate in shaping regional order as one of the key players, not bystander of regional order making. And without this, common understanding, implementation of AOIP will end up being a just continuation of previous, economic cooperation project, like, promoting investment, trade, infrastructure, and so forth. So we need a bit broader perspective. When we engage in the implementation of the AOIP, we need to look individual project within a broader context of shaping new regional orders. Second one is networking is essential to operationalize the AOIP. So as I mentioned, AOIP is aiming is on how to establish new regional orders beyond Southeast Asia, dealing with the Indo-Pacific as a whole. And we have seen many new bilateral and unilateral arrangement dealing with Indo-Pacific regional affairs for last several years. And we have seen some emergence of new so-called regional architectures, mostly based on the newly established bilateral, unilateral arrangement. That is the strategic reality of the Indo-Pacific. So I think, ASEAN countries, when ASEAN engaged in operationalizing AOIP, I think ASEAN need to place the ASEAN within a broader emerging regional architectures and connecting ASEAN's activities with the activities are being carried out in these newly emerging regional architectures. And the third one is cost sharing or burden sharing is quite important to operationalize the AOIP. So participation in shaping regional orders is not cost-free. And it's, the participating in the regional order building means sharing the cost of the providing public goods that underpin the regional stable orders. So I hope, and also, sharing the cost, increase the awareness of ownership of, being engaged in regional order buildings. So I hope ASEAN's colleagues are ready to share the cost of shaping regional order in this region. Of course, there are variety of kind of the burden sharing. So sharing the cost is one way, but on the other hand, providing a new idea is another important cost sharing matters and so forth. But anyway, ASEAN need to further engage in the regional order building through the implementation of AOIP. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Sutomo-san. And I will now open the floor for comments, questions, responses. Gurjit, and can I have a few more hands just in case there's any? Okay, Dr. Sopwan, please.
Thank you very much, Dino and FPCI and GRIPS for having us here again. I am very happy to participate in this. Just a few comments from the Indian point of view. Trump is a reality. So is Millet, Meloni, Modi, Merz, Ishiba. They're all realities. So I don't share Bob Blake's pessimism. I mean, you elect a president and blame the world for it. I'm sorry, I don't accept the blame for the ascension of Trump. But I have to deal with Trump. I think it's important that we don't demonize Trump, but learn to live with him, because that is what a group needs to do. Secondly, when I was in Jakarta 10 days ago, the question asked was, is it better to be ignored by the US or embraced by them? I think ASEAN is benefiting from being ignored presently. But Japan and India have been embraced. But I think we have two recent meetings of Ishiba with Trump and Modi with Trump not come back looking too bad. We are living with it. And we understand what they want. The success is, can we make them understand what we want? That is the challenge. Third, AOIP is a great moment for us to reorder the region. We in India, and I believe also in Japan from our discussions, do not believe that the AOIP or the region of Indo-Pacific depends on the United States for its success. As I know and what I was told, that India and Japan have discussed this and said, we will hold up the Indo-Pacific at two ends. We want ASEAN, Australia, and other partners to be a part of it, but we cannot let the Indo-Pacific down. It is part of our ambition and security. Finally, I liked what the professor from Japan said. AOIP has to reorder itself, and so does ASEAN thinking, from being a donor-driven exercise to a partnership, where you not only tell us what you want, but you contribute to the cost of what you want. And that, I think, is really lacking in ASEAN. And if you want AOIP to succeed, at least India will stand with you, provided you also contribute to the projects. One of the reasons, and our colleague from Cambodia mentioned, the trilateral highway. One of the reasons it doesn't work well is because the ASEAN members don't contribute anything to it. They just leave India to do everything, including sort out their domestic problems. That is not a partnership. That is a donor relationship, and that is not going to work. So my suggestion, AOIP, look at a genuine partnership model. And if the US has taught you anything, and the Europe has learned something, ASEAN should learn. Don't just depend on others' largesse. Stand up, and you are big economies now, all among you, big economies. You should also contribute towards the holding up of the region, and we are all going to stand with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gurjit. I think of all Asian leaders, so far I see Prime Minister Modi as the one having the best access to Trump and can speak good sense to him, because they've known each other since Trump 1.0. There's the Quad mechanism and so many factors. They have actually met personally, and they seem to be getting along well. So I hope, we count on Prime Minister Modi to speak the right advice to President Trump. Dr. Sofwan.
Yes, thank you very much, Dino, and thank you very much for all speakers. I think they highlighted a very important point that AOIP is a strategic document, and it shows ASEAN's determination to play a central role in the larger Indo-Pacific region. But the tension, I think, is between this declared determination and what ASEAN is actually doing. I mean, as a symbolic action, the document is quite successful. I mean, it sends a message to other partners, and other partners are actually adapting towards it by generally showing its respects. But I think then if the AOIP aim to strategically create the convergence or aligned the various Indo-Pacific visions and make it to be centralized in ASEAN and to develop a regional order which is conducive to peace and stability. The problem is ASEAN wants a central role in that vision, but again, as already mentioned, often not willing to be central in taking the initiative. I mean, Michael mentioned that if other stakeholders are willing to take the initiative, then please do so. I mean, of course, that is an interesting point, which ASEAN usually do, but sometimes that could also mean that ASEAN probably lack confidence and lack initiative to, I mean, rather than letting partners, or if we look at the increasingly fragmented visions of Indo-Pacific, the partners are having different visions. So how can ASEAN be at the center and align these fragmented visions if ASEAN is not playing the initiative role and paying the cost for it? So I think this is the tension between the strategic aim and the passive, relatively passive actions of ASEAN, which we need to bridge. So as Professor Sutomo has mentioned, ASEAN needs to pay the cost, but the cost are can be in various ways. So what I would like to ask from the speakers is what kind of cost actually that ASEAN feasibly can do, that it is big enough, significant enough, but also feasibly done by the material limitations of ASEAN. I mean, providing the vision in the ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific is one thing, and this is quite accepted. But I think there are more expectations beyond this visioning. So what is feasible for ASEAN? Realistic enough, but also impactful enough at the cost that ASEAN can pay, not only waiting for the other actors. Thank you very much.
Other comments? Let me see if I can get Michael to respond to Dr. Sofwan.
Well, when I mentioned that if ASEAN is too slow and the other partners can take the lead, I also mentioned two conditionalities. First, it has to conform to the principles and, of course, the overall document of the AOIP. And secondly, it has to get the support of all ASEAN countries. So these are the two conditionalities that have to be fulfilled. The second point, when we talk about how to, that ASEAN has to put in place the necessary resources, I totally agree. When my fifth point, I talk about ASEAN needs to take up the wider responsibility, right? And that means both to better coordinate its regional foreign policy, both at the strategic level, like the AOIP, as well as on the more operational level. And that means also where ASEAN needs to also provide the necessary resources to carry out its vision, regional vision. But let's look at the AOIP. Let's look at some of the area of cooperation. For instance, like connectivity. Actually, many of the core of the connectivity is actually domestic connectivity. Yeah. So it's actually the responsibility of ASEAN countries to develop its internal connectivity. And then when it comes to regional connectivity, it's about to harmonize and to link the domestic connectivity with its neighbors. So the majority of the responsibility in terms of connectivity is actually on the ASEAN side. They have to invest. So when they spend money or put the resources on the connectivity, actually they are investing in their own economy. Yeah, the regional side of the connectivity is about how you coordinate, how you connect the connectivity, national connectivity with other countries. And that is the usefulness of having a regional master plan, so that everyone has the big picture, and then you try to connect. But the domestic connectivity lies on ASEAN. Let's talk about, Indonesia may be difficult, but let's see Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand. Yeah, you may be able to connect Singapore and Malaysia, or Thailand and Malaysia, but if internal Malaysian, there's no connectivity between the north and south, what do you do? Nothing. Yeah. And responsibility for connecting domestic connectivity infrastructure lies on each ASEAN countries. About the importance of the resources is not about ASEAN providing resources to be used by external partners, by other ASEAN countries. It's more about its own uses of its domestic development. Look at the other part of AOIP, for instance, on economic cooperation. ASEAN initiated the RCEP, and I said earlier that RCEP is a good example on how the principles of AOIP can be put in practice. But have we actually optimized the opportunities presented by RCEP? RCEP was adopted like in 2002, I think, if I'm mistaken. So about 2 or 3 years have passed. what are the actual gain that we have from the implementation of RCEP. There are many opportunities that we have not yet explored. Yeah. And again, if ASEAN countries want to make use of the mechanism opportunity that presented by the RCEP, they have to look at in their own domestic economic policy first, whether they can harmonize the arrangement within the RCEP with their own domestic economic policies. Right? So most of the, when we talk about resources and when there's a need for ASEAN to put its resources on the table, it's actually about priorities that closely link with the domestic priorities of ASEAN. Whether the domestic priorities of ASEAN match with the so-called regional policy of ASEAN. That is why I talk about better coordination because ASEAN will never have a common foreign policy, but it needs to better coordinate its regional foreign policy as ASEAN, both at the strategic and operational level. That means not only coordination among countries, but to ensure that the national priorities are also in sync with the regional policy of ASEAN. Thank you.
Dr. Unkiang?
Yes, I wanted to make 3 points. I think first, we were talking about the rise of Trump and as if the world is going to end up, that each individual country is going to adopt a total isolationist policy. I think it is impossible to do that in the era of globalization, even though we see forces of the globalization. And so countries like India, China, while the United States is stepping back, those countries stepping forward. And so what ASEAN need to do is to leverage regional mechanisms, regional economic power in order to generate, I think, resources for various kinds of projects. And for ASEAN, I think even though it might not need resources for various projects, but its secretariat needs to have more resources so that it can improve its coordinating capacity. That's what need to have, because ASEAN Secretariat now have about what, 90 million or 19 million dollars for it. Right.
20 million.
Right, 19 then, yeah. And so it's very small for an organization of its size, and so it needs to increase that. And the third point is that there are, as I mentioned earlier, as other countries trying to step up, and ASEAN, what it needs to do is to find way to connect its domestic projects or regional projects to what that other regional powers wanted to expand. And I raised the issue of trilateral highway, for an example, that each ASEAN country probably through various kinds of other mechanisms or through its own resources, could harness resources to expand, those projects and make it into an encompassing, project that connect, various parts of the region.
Thank you. Let me also just have some comments. On the U.S. seems to be popular in this session. Look, I agree with Ambassador Gurjit, that we need to work with whoever is in Washington, and we still need to see what Trump administration wants to do with our region. We know what he's done to Europe and transatlantic, very disruptive, and actions that cause his allies to frown, yeah? But we don't know what he will do to our region. FOIP 2.0 from Trump is yet to be announced, right? People like Matt Pottinger, who was driving the FOIP in White House under Trump 1.0, is no longer there. He's actually isolated now, you know, he's like, because he opposed Trump. And Secretary Pompeo defined FOIP as being very anti-China. We still remember his speeches in Tokyo during the Quad foreign ministers meeting. So if, we don't know if there will be FOIP 2.0, but if FOIP 2.0 assumes the same tone, that's going to be problematic in terms of ASEAN pushing forward with AOIP, in my view, yeah. So that's one, and I think when I was in Europe, I saw, because Europeans are so confused about the United States, there were a lot of expressions about engaging more with Asia, with Indo-Pacific, right? Including with ASEAN. So that's an opportunity for greater alignments. Yeah. Japan will be steady with ASEAN. We know that very well. There will be no change in terms of Japan's prioritization of ASEAN. I think China will benefit more because if the United States is adopting isolationist or worse bullying policy towards the region, towards countries in the region, which I hope that doesn't happen. But a lot of countries will look for more options, and China will look a lot more attractive under such conditions. I think India also will look more attractive. Keep in mind that President Prabowo, despite his, you know, he's having a lot of political problems at home, but he still went to India to be the chief guest at the India National Day, and I know he thinks of India not just as economic opportunities, but as strategic, in terms of strategic partnerships. Right? So I think we should expect a lot of dynamism and fluidity in terms of alignments in the Indo-Pacific area. But if Trump does engage ASEAN, which he did not under Trump 1.0, if he does, and then he starts coming with a bullying positioning. Bullying means demanding this and that, and making judgmental comments, you guys are too slow, you guys are this or that. His political capital and the benefit of the doubt that we gave him is fast gonna dwindle, because, you know, Prabowo in Indonesia also has domestic constituencies. He can't be seen to be, you know, cowering to a bully from the outside and things like that. So I hope they are very wise in approaching ASEAN. And finally, you know, Gurjit, I take your point about ASEAN needing to invest more in ASEAN. FPCI, for example, we try to promote people-to-people collaboration and focusing on universities. And we are looking at one program that ASEAN does on universities. I forget what is the name of it, yeah. But we look at the program of this ASEAN Universities program. The ASEAN to ASEAN content is very minimal. There's almost no activities. The only activities are ASEAN Universities cooperation if it's funded by China, or if it's funded by Japan, or if it's funded by Korea, right? Otherwise, there's no activity, right? So I think one of the strategic moves ASEAN can do as we plan for 2045, and also political move, is really realization and decision to invest more in ASEAN's own activities. Yeah. Pak Jung, you want to add? Sorry, I didn't see your hand. Anyone want to comment more? Oh, Lucio, yeah.
Thank you, Ambassador Jalal. Leadership change is a sovereign process, and so it's something that all of us have to live with, accept. But I think the concern about the leadership, Trump 2.0, has more to do with the status, the role being played by the U.S. in the international system. If it's just any other country, we won't have this much, of a discussion. Of course, the U.S. provides both security and economic goods to the region, to the world. And so if Trump decides to cut back or diminish that role, then other countries, of course, may probably have to step in, step up if U.S. step back. But of course, the concerns about the capacity, the void that U.S. will leave is not a void that can easily be replaced. And I think that is one thing that we are here, to discuss, the cost sharing, the burden sharing. It's something that, sinking in. But to what extent we can fill that void effectively and credibly. So my point is, it's one thing for one country to prioritize its own domestic issues. It's understandable. All leaders should look at their domestic constituency paramount. But I think some rhetoric and some posturing and some actions in relation to international norms, Ambassador Jalal mentioned about claims or making irredentist claims, making territorial claims to other countries. That's a different thing. Erosion of multilateral system. If tariff wars would be the in thing, to resolve trade disputes to the detriment of existing mechanisms out there, like in the WTO, then that would not be a good practice, because other countries also have trade disputes with neighbors or with other partners. So if you have a major country resorting to this kind of practice, then what kind of message does it send? So I'm interested to hear the thoughts of the speakers on understandably WTO has its flaws. It's not perfect. So the way by which trade disputes are being settled maybe takes time, very cumbersome the process. Is there a way for us to, ASEAN and its partners, to be of help in trying to maybe update, maybe address the concerns of U.S. and other countries that made them shy away from this process to begin with, made them frustrated with the process, that made some leaders feel that they're being egged, that they're being rigged by the system. Because keeping the U.S. invested, committed to multilateral norms is in the interest of everyone. So if the concerns are warranted and it is something that we can find ways to address, I think it's something that we should do. And of course, the high-level participation of the Trump administration during the Trump first term in ASEAN meetings is, of course, everybody knows. So if that would be the same game for Trump 2.0, then of course that would leave door for other partners to come in. But if there are ways for us to keep U.S. invested in the region, I think we should find ways. Maybe the last point. I know U.S. government in itself, downsizing foreign aid, U.S. aid. There's a Department of Government Efficiency trying to right-size, commitments of U.S. abroad, government commitments. But I think the space to engage U.S. private sector, U.S. private capital, equity funds, to bear on infrastructure projects in the region, it's something that should be looked at by all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I've been told by Cindy that we have to end this conversation. It's unfortunate because this is really we're getting very productive conversations. But again, talking about Trump, some of the advices I'm getting from my American friends is one, buy U.S. products, right? That's what he wants, right? Secondly, praise Trump, right? Don't say anything about, hey, you know, we don't want to choose between U.S. and China. No, he's not interested in that, you know, right? And third is, I think the Japanese know this very well. When Abe played golf with Trump for 2 hours, 98% of the conversation was about golf, not about world peace or trade. So I think our leaders, maybe we need to, maybe they need to play golf, learn to play golf, but none of us play golf anymore. So yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Gurjit, did you want to have 2 fingers? Okay. So thank you for this really useful and good conversation that we've had. We have a break until, oh, sorry, I'll leave it to the MC to announce the housekeeping things. So let's give a big hand to all the panelists or speakers.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Dino, and for chairing the opening sessions, and thank you to all the lead discussants and delegates for their valuable insights and contributions. We would also like to extend our appreciations to all virtual participants for joining us. We hope the insights shared today will deepen your understanding of the opportunities and challenges shaping the Indo-Pacific region. Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, we will now take a brief 15-minute break before commencing our first working sessions of the day, which will focus on the economy. Coffee, tea, and snacks are available just outside of this room. The session will begin at 9:50 sharp. Once again, please be back here at 9:50. So please be back on time, and thank you for your kind cooperations. Enjoy your break, and we look forward to resuming